Hello everyone, and welcome back to Case Models. My name is Greg, and today we're going to be taking a look at a recently completed project of mine, a Blunami upgrade to this MTH Southern PS-4. So in this video we'll be going over the model itself, what was done to it, and then we'll be showing it going around the layout, so stick around. Alright, so this model specifically is one of the earlier runs of the MTH Premier PS4. I can't find, unfortunately it was before they started doing product numbers, the box has no information on that and I can't find anything online. But just going off of what information I have on this thing, I believe it was made sometime in the early 2000s, maybe even late 90s. So when this thing came out, it was equipped with a Sooth unit, however you pronounce that, not a fan-driven smoke unit, QSI sound, which was on its way out. That board was not doing too healthy, as well as other early MTH tooling quirks that have kind of faded away. Also had a lot of incandescent lighting, the only LEDs in this thing being the marker lights that it had. It also, another quirk of early MTH engines was it had red class lights on the front, which that didn't really happen on steam locomotives outside of some certain road names, especially not Southern to my knowledge. And this model specifically does represent 1401, which is famously preserved in the Smithsonian Museum. It's a gorgeous engine. I recommend, if you're in the area, to go check that out. Now, this model was purchased about, I want to say, 8 months to a year ago by a friend of mine off of a popular used model train website, and we bought it knowing that it was rough. But it ended up needing a lot more work than we originally anticipated. The main thing was that we could tell right away from the listing pictures was it had broken side rods, which, you know, fine. MTH has reran this thing a ton of times. We can get replacement side rods. It was, I think, like $10. After going through the engine, we realized that it was also missing on one of the drivers, the driver tire. Now, it wasn't just knocked off, it was gone. It's like, alright, that's a bit weird, but maybe I could get us just a new driver. Turns out, MTH, they don't really sell individual driver sets. And the more I looked at this thing, it had been apparent that the model had been dropped at some point. The drive was knocked pretty far out of whack. I'll put a clip over now of the wheels on the old frame just free rolling. You can see the rear driver and the middle driver have quite a bit of wonk to them. And I do have an axle puller. I probably could have remedied this, but the problem is there just weren't, those individual parts just aren't really a thing. Aren't available to get from MTH or from any dealers. So I had to go, and ultimately we decided to just replace the whole frame, because MTH did have frame blocks, which was they call it the drive block, which is the frame and then the drivers with the drive gear on the center axle. So we put that in, but that also came with its own challenges. I assume that this new frame was from a later release, maybe a Proto Sound 2 or 3 release, and not the Proto 1 release, which this is. Because I had to make my own pickup mounts for them. The lead and trailing trucks also attach differently, and the wheels did not have white walls on them, which the PS4s famously had. Ultimately, after getting everything back together, I was able to get the original motor was fine. It was a Pitman motor, you know, those never die, and the spur gear that was on it, not spur gear, worm gear that was on that motor also worked with the drive gear that was supplied. So that was a bit of a headache that was thankfully avoided. Now, another thing with these is lighting. The way that MTH wired these to begin with, this was how pretty much every manufacturer was doing it in this era, was the lighting all went to a constant voltage lighting board in the engine, and then that just had the lights on all the time. Directional lighting wasn't really a thing except for going in reverse, but you had the board in the tender so you could automatically just, so that they didn't have to run a harness through for lighting. These had 4-pin harnesses on them, so those 2 pins would have been 2 pins for power and 2 pins for the motor. And that's how these things would have been driven. To get this thing, you know, to modern standards, it just gutted it. We had to gut the thing to the frame anyway. So I gutted it down to the frame. New lighting all throughout, almost all throughout. And one of the main benefits of this is now everything is individually controllable. So marker lights on the rear have their own function. Class lights on the front have their own function. The cab light's on its own function, and the firebox glow actually flickers and goes along with the chuff of the engine, which is a really neat feature on the Blunami decoder. Now, as for the installation of the decoder and the electronics itself, I really just followed Sid's Train's video on this, on installing Blunami. The only thing I did differently was I changed one other thing that I did that I had to do for this was I had to change out the harness because it was only 4 pins. You know, you can't do anything with that. So I got a 10-pin harness from Third Rail that they usually put in their steam engines. It also just looks so much better because it doesn't have that loop-de-loop and curve that the old one has, as well as the Protosound 2 era harnesses. So that was a significant improvement. Another thing that I changed was I built a new I made a new drawbar to go between the engine and tender. The original one was a couple inches long, and it looked ridiculous. Even at its shortest setting, there was still a solid like 1.5 inches between the engine and tender, and it looked really silly. I get that it was to help it go around like tight curves, and what I have it on now really limits it to 0.72, but it just really helps the way these things look and makes it look like more like a model and not as much as a toy. As for going back to the lighting, I replaced the headlight with a LED, a golden white LED, and the the class lights on the front have also been replaced with modern like nano LEDs that were golden white. It looks a lot more realistic. The cab light and the firebox light, I was able to retain the old incandescents. Since you don't really see them, it doesn't really matter as much, and they were still working fine. Also on the rear, since it was the rear of the engine, I elected to keep the old red LEDs that were in there. I just put a resistoring line and was able to retain those. However, I did replace the backup light, which I swapped over to the same LED that's in the headlight. That's quite bright now. I gutted the smoke unit out of this. It was one of the old Sooth units, like mentioned before, which has that pole in the middle. I think they're just the ugliest things ever, and they don't work very well. So that was one of the first things I just ripped out of this. As for the decoder itself, this is the first time I've done a Blunami swap on an engine. And I did get a chance to play around with some Blunami equipped 3-rail when I was in Chicago several months ago, and I was really skeptical of how much I would like it, because I'm very big on the team of I like having the controller in my hand, just because I like the tactile feel of it. I'm not the biggest fan of running stuff on my phone, just because I like having my phone available for other things. But the benefit of Blunami is that since it's Bluetooth, it doesn't interfere with your phone's ability to do other stuff that you need it for, like compared to Wi-Fi based systems, which I know the earlier ones, they probably remedied this on newer systems. I don't know, I haven't played around with them. But since it's connected to a system's Wi-Fi network, your phone isn't getting internet anymore. But regardless, I'm really happy with the way that this came out. I'm really happy with the way it's been running, and the way it sounds is also just fantastic. Because I've been my go-to for upgrades has been ERR for forever, especially since Protosound 3 kits are just non-existent. We got a couple of them in sometime last year, and then they all vanished, and they haven't restocked them. So I'm really liking this as an alternative to ERR, especially since in the end it costs about the same after all materials, even actually maybe a little bit less This project costs more just because of the debacle with the frame and other small bits, but it runs fine. It runs fine, and it sounds fantastic, and it has a infinitely wider sound selection than ERR, and it's much easier to program than MTH. So I'm seriously considering doing more of these. I have a few project engines that I think would run pretty good with Blunami, and would ultimately, I think Blunami would be better choices for those models compared to ERR or Protosound 3. Maybe in the future you'll be seeing videos from me regarding those. Now, another note about the decoder is when the original decoder for this I bought sometime in early January. I bought the decoder from Tony's Train Exchange in Essex Junction, Vermont. Now they didn't pay me or anything like this. This isn't sponsored by any means. The delivery company that was supposed to deliver it to my house lost it. I don't know what happened to it, but it vanished, and this was early January. I'm recording this in mid-May. That decoder was wiped off the face of the earth. I'm convinced it's at the bottom of it's in the bottom of Port Elizabeth right now, because that's where it last was seen, at a distribution center there. But Tony's Train Exchange was very helpful in not only working things out with the courier service, but also was able to secure me a replacement, because just my luck, the one that he shipped me was the last one available in the world. There were no other Steam 2 Blunami 4408 decoders available for quite a while, but he was able to get me a replacement as soon as they were available, and was very helpful throughout the whole endeavor. So I really want to give a big thanks to Tony's Train Exchange for their continued help through that complete debacle. That drove me to wit's end with this project. But ultimately, was able to get a replacement, and now the engine is here, it's done, and hopefully my good friend will be able to enjoy it. Alright, I think that's enough of me yapping on about this. Let's show it going around the layout. Alright, so that about wraps it up for this video. This was quite a fun project, and hopefully I'll be doing another one of these soon. If you like this video, be sure to hit the subscribe button down below and see more reviews and projects from me in the future, and hopefully I'll see you in the next one.